Revelation of A.S.H. Chapter 8. To be or not to be alone. Quinn Shalom. December after the Revelation night. I spent weeks leading up to the holidays trying to learn what took Kenneth years to learn. I studied the books I stole, and reading Kenneth's work, I was confused. He left me everything to survive, learn, and work on understanding his work. There was even a set of portable solar panels to run the computer he left me there, with courses on everything I needed to help me understand. But it was all so far beyond anything I ever learned. I felt lost looking at the sheer volume of Kenneth's research. I didn't know how he expected me to figure out what went wrong if he didn't see it before he was killed. I felt like I was trapped in a maze and wished I could just walk in a straight line to get out. But that wasn't going to happen. They tested it against my recommendation. Tested what? I wondered. There had to be information he didn't have, that his whore kept from him, his boss, Eliza Abbott. I met her once. She seemed nice, beautiful and friendly. After reading her notes, I despised her. I couldn't help it. Anyone so filled with hate for others, solely based on their genetics, was not even a person in my book. She needed to die. And not because she was screwing my husband, but because someone like her was a blight on humanity. I didn't even celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas because I had nothing to be thankful or hopeful about. I dreamed again. Kenneth was telling me about the new phase in his research. It was our 10th anniversary, and we were sitting in a private cabin at Mount Princeton Hot Springs. He had arrived home unexpectedly 2 days earlier. When I arrived home from picking up the kids from school, Darcy was waiting. He just made me pack an overnight bag, put me in the car, and brought me to the resort. It had been an amazingly romantic weekend. I watched him moving M&Ms around on the tabletop. He and Molly loved them. I hated them. The red ones are those who will be most affected by the contaminants. They have genetic traits and the accompanying infections that always occur together. The orange ones are people who have the traits but not the infections yet. The yellow ones are people with a few traits who might get the infections. The green ones are people with even fewer traits who will most likely never get the infection. So the genetic traits and infections together make people sicker? I asked, because I really didn't understand. No, it doesn't make them sick in the classic sense like the flu. It is more passive than that. It changes their metabolism. So some environmental contaminants will affect them like poison. Like Darcy can't have certain artificial sweeteners or she gets migraines. Some people pass the traits on to their children. A red will always have a red or orange child who will be susceptible to the contaminants. Oranges will have orange or yellow children, and so on and so forth. That is why my work is so important. I'm going to be gone for weeks at a time. I could be gone for months to some other part of the world. The whole future of life as we know it could depend on my work. He frowned in that way he got when he didn't know if he was going to be able to be good enough. Isn't there anyone who is going to be okay? I was really worried for our children. Ken smiled and held up a blue M&M. About 15% of the population will be completely unaffected, but that leaves the other 85% at risk. And any time a blue marries any color besides blue, their children will always carry the other parent's trait level. I looked at all the ways he arranged the M&Ms. It was almost too much for me to understand. Then I got a very cold feeling. What are the effects? Some have mental disabilities, developmental delays, metabolic problems, immunological problems. Some even die. He said the last part so softly, like one of the kids telling the scary part of a nightmare. What color are we? He raised his eyebrow at my question. I just gave him a stern glare to hide my fear. I know you already know. What are you? What are we? He swallowed and sighed heavily before moving a blue and an orange between us, and an orange and a yellow beside them. I stared at the orange closest to me. Molly's was orange too. Miles was yellow. Ken's was blue. I couldn't stop the tears. Molly and I were high-level trait carriers. The environmental contamination caused her developmental delays. I made Molly sick? My grief choked me. No, you did not make her sick, Quinn. Your genetics makes you strong, immune to a lot of other things that makes normal people sick. It was just bad luck that Molly developed Asperger's. And look at her. Look how well she does, how well she copes, how hard she tries. You did that. You taught her to do that, and now you're helping other mothers who face the same thing. You turned what we went through into a platform to help others. 1 in 60 children develop it every year, and every year that ratio gets smaller. I want it to stop, so Molly and Miles don't have to worry about their children. So when they have children, your work helping families cope with autism spectrum won't be needed. He held my face in his hands and wiped my tears with his thumbs. Your work now is more important than mine. You help people cope. You help them heal. You keep families together. I'm just a glorified janitor cleaning up someone else's mess. I can't tell you how proud you make me. I chewed my lip for a moment, then leaned in to kiss him. Afterwards, I whispered as my forehead pressed into his, "You do whatever you have to do to find a way to fix this. I'll support you. I don't care how long it takes, how long you're gone. Just do it. I know you can do it, and I'll be waiting for you at home. I know you can figure it out. I love you." "I love you more," he whispered back, his lips against my cheek. I woke with the memory of the warmth of his whisper on my skin. "I love you more." Was it a lie? I rolled over, pulled his letter out of the drawer, and read it again. Then I laid in bed and cried. I hated Kenneth as much as I had once loved him, and I hated myself that I still loved him too. I wished I had never stopped running. I would have been better off alone. The day before Miles's birthday, I made a horrifying discovery. Kenneth was studying the anti-nonhuman antigen that was added to flu shots and routine vaccinations for 2 decades. While working with the most recent vaccine additive to prevent those with non-human genetics exposed to the transformative virus from becoming infected and changed. He realized it was causing metabolism side effects, mental and behavioral issues in young children, and even deaths. The Human Purity Project directors had done nothing about it. He developed a new form without the drastic side effects. He was so proud of it, only to discover the milder symptoms showed up years later after repeated doses. The higher the genome percentage, the more likely the side effects. Molly was in the first test group with Kenneth's development. Miles was given vaccines without the additive. Looking at the dates, I knew that 2 years later, Molly was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. I needed to stop for the day. I wasn't the one who made Molly autistic with my bad genes. Kenneth was, with his vaccine additive. It snowed again. All I could do was continue to study the notes Kenneth made, but after reading that, I couldn't. Our children were his guinea pigs. My husband made our daughter the way she was, trapped her in the prison of her mind because of his pride, so confident that his vaccine additive didn't have side effects. I hated him. 2 days later, I finished my last bottle of whiskey, with my wolf taunting me that I wouldn't get so lucky or lose our pup to alcohol poisoning. Wolves were stronger than humans. I shouted at her how much I hated her and all wolves, my voice echoing harshly off the walls of my tiny house as I screamed about how much I hated that I lived. I only lived to find the truth, and what I found was worse than anything I could ever have imagined. I ran outside and threw myself down in the drift-covered meadow, staring at the sky and waiting to freeze to death in the snow, until hypothermia overcame me. I woke up inside in a tub of warm water, my frozen vomit-covered clothes in the sink, and the living room, the clock chimed midnight. I dressed and went to bed. My New Year's resolution was to quit drinking and find the truth. Hers was to have and raise our pup without our mate, or me. Then I had the strangest dream. I was standing in a snow-covered meadow surrounded by mountains, the one near my cabin where I tried to die only hours earlier. Gerard was standing there, looking around curiously. I couldn't help my shock that he was there in my dream, or that it didn't feel like a dream at all. "This is lovely. Are you near this place now?" I turned to look around the scene so I was not facing him when I spoke. "I have no idea where this is. It's beautiful. Some place you know in France or Canada?" I don't know why I lied to him, but I did. I didn't want anyone to know where I was. He shook his head. As I turned to face him, "I have never seen this place either." "What are you doing in my dream, Gerard?" "I was worried about you, mon petit loup. No one has seen or heard from you since you were taken from the hospital and replaced with that other she-wolf. No one will tell me anything." He sounded so worried and sincere. He hugged me in the dream, and I felt comforted, but strangely like I was betraying Kenneth. "Why are you so sad, mon loup?" "I'm not really." I felt guilty for misleading the one who saved my life. "Gerard, you shouldn't ask about me. They might come after you too." "Is someone after you? Are you and your child in danger?" He sounded concerned. "I promise I can protect you." "Gerard, they were at my house. waiting for me. Dark ones. I'm in hiding until I can figure some things out. Please don't look for me. I don't want you in danger. Know that I am safe and warm," I assured him. He brushed the back of his knuckles across my cheek. "I am here for you, Quinn. I gave you my blood and my oath. You can trust me. You are the bravest female I have ever met." Tears swelled in my eye because I was not brave. "I can't trust anyone right now, and may not be able to ever again, and neither should you. There are evil people who did this. Please, please be careful, Gerard. I'm sorry. I need to wake up now." I made myself step away from him and the uncomfortable feelings he gave me. The wind blew hard as the snow swirled around us. Gerard called out to me to wait. I opened my eyes to the darkness of my room and the hum of the heater keeping the house at 60 degrees. Turning on my side, I started to cry. I was so lonely. My wolf was so lonely. We were fighting all the time. But I couldn't risk anyone else getting killed or hurt until I figured out what happened. I knew I had neighbors, but I hadn't seen any of them recently. Maybe tomorrow or next week I would drive to one of the towns. Maybe I'd run into one of them. But what if they weren't nice? What if I ran into one of the monsters? My mind went back to Kenneth's research as it always did. Nothing in the Human Purity Project's notes indicated that anything like what did happen could happen. I couldn't go back to sleep. Part of me hoped Gerard would come find me. Each and every day by myself, I knew I was breaking down more. I didn't want to be alone anymore, and neither did my wolf. Galen watched his brother Gerard dream scrying the missing she-wolf. She was beautiful. Her soul shone like a star in the dark sky. They were standing in a snowy field surrounded by mountains. She claimed she didn't know where they were, but Galen was sure she wasn't being truthful. Then she revealed someone was after her, and she wouldn't put him in danger. Galen rolled his eyes. Gerard was the most dangerous thing to her. Galen's older brother wanted a reading of the she-wolf's soul, and he wasn't going to be happy. His brother's charm always worked on the innocent, but not this time. Gerard swore colorfully as the image faded into nothingness. She went dark on him. Galen pointed out, "She is far too selfless to put anyone else at risk, even when she doesn't understand what the risks are. Her soul is pure." I think she must have realized who her mate is. If she went into hiding so quickly. Gerard tapped his perfect chin thoughtfully. "Ger, she doesn't know anything about the werewolf world or the monarchy. There is no way she knows who her mate could be," Galen reminded. But Gerard didn't seem convinced. "Perhaps she knows her husband's work has the answer and is trying to figure out what happened." "She has more reason than anyone to seek the truth," Galen suggested, "to vindicate her husband." Gerard sat back and stretched. He shook his head in disbelief. "She barely has a high school education, and Troy was keeping it all from her. He was worried Director Abbott might harm her or their children if she knew about their work." Galen couldn't help his smirk. "How is Eliza?" Gerard laughed and answered smugly, "Beautiful, vain, and easily seduced." His arrogance knew no bounds, So Galen needled him. Mon petit loup, since when are you so French? You hated the old country. Still, I can't believe the little she-wolf shot you down. She actually resisted your charms, big brother. You must be losing your touch. Gerard gave his younger brother a mocking glare. You are the devil, little brother. Galen snorted derisively. Have you looked in the mirror lately? Gerard reached up and ruffled Galen's dark hair, which he hated. I don't have to. I only have to look at you. Narrowing his eyes, Galen demanded sarcastically, And how long will I have to bear the burden of your enlightened soul? Not much longer, but think of the fun you can have while you carry it. Gerard offered benevolently. Frowning, Galen reminded his brother, It's only the kind of fun you would choose. When this is over, I look forward back to my old ways and regaining my true soul self. It was Gerard's turn to snort, mocking. Boring. Where's the fun in that? Exactly. Galen stood. We are even now. I owed you a reading, and it is done. Still, why would you choose this little wolf when you could have made me read one of your enemies? What's so special about her? Gerard gave him a devilish grin. Nothing, as far as she or anyone else knows. Will you be visiting Mother and the clan soon? No. Goodbye, brother. Call me when you want your curse back. As he flew away, Galen decided he needed to call in a favor from an old friend. Gerard became testy when he didn't get his way and tended to make rash choices that created problems. Galen knew his brother wanted the she-wolf. Gerard had given her his blood to keep her alive, but what Galen didn't know was why. Why was this newly turned she-wolf in particular so important to his dark fae brother? Galen wondered if Gerard knew about the pup she carried. He decided he needed to find her first and protect her from whatever Gerard's end game was. Quinn Shalom. In the 3 months I've lived in Kenneth's little cottage, I've met a few others who lived around here. I told them my name was Shalom Smith and showed them the fake ID Kenneth left for me at the cottage. There was a vampire with a human beloved and her human family, 4 wolves and 5 other humans, and a fae and human couple who barely escaped the city. Once a week since the new year, we met in the small cafe in the little town to the south called Westcliff, or made the trek in a group to one of the cities on the interstate. It seemed we added a person or wolf to our group every few weeks. Everyone worried about my pregnancy. I felt it kick. I couldn't hate it anymore. It was my child. It wasn't safe to travel alone because of them. We called them ravers because they are raving mad. They were the wolves and vampires who had not recovered from the Revelation night. They were always naked, deranged, and reeking of aggression. They never spoke, only growled, and their eyes were clouded like a corpse's, so they didn't seem to see well. There were only 2 things you needed to know about them: kill on sight, and never run if they see, smell, or hear you. They reminded me of the creatures from an old sci-fi series that Kenneth had loved called Firefly. When they made the movie, we stood in the rain for 3 hours so he could be one of the first to see it. Those creatures were called reavers, people driven mad by an environmental toxin put in the air. The cause and the effect were the same that I face now. It was terrifying to have seen science fiction become fact with the deaths of 2 million souls. Merle Grayson, the Fey veterinarian, and John Lance, a human forensic pathologist and CSI, trapped a raver in their barn, hoping to heal it and make it sane. They gave it food every day, but it wouldn't eat anything that wasn't freshly dead. It began eating itself rather than consume meat that was cold and bloodless. Even in its weakened state, when it was too weak to stand or crawl, it tried to attack them. As doctors, they were both horrified. They performed a bunch of tests that showed no bacterial or viral infection and nothing that would appear on a toxicology screen. Lance even autopsied it. The raver had the expected malnutrition, minor wound infections, and starvation. However, nothing was grossly abnormal. The only thing in its blood chemistry were that it had scurvy and anemia, besides the expected elevated testosterone and adrenaline levels. Its corneas were clouded like it had developed cataracts, but they didn't know why. Whatever had made the nonhumans sick on the Revelation night did its job and vanished. I wondered about sharing Kenneth's work with them and decided I would. I hoped they could find something because I had no luck. Next, Chapter 9.